In today's recording for Widow Wisdom and Wealth, we are meeting Nicole Lewis Keeber. Now, for many of you who have been listening for a while, you know that this podcast is geared to helping widows and widowers who are balancing career and parenthood thrive. Now, for many of us, the career part of life dramatically changed after the loss of our spouse because we had to work with balancing the responsibilities of self-parenting. We were impacted by our time, our schedule, ability to find support for our kids each and every day. And for some, the loss of our spouse created some type of pivot point where we wanted to recreate our work life. And maybe we became our own boss or we entered entrepreneurship so that we had a little bit more flexibility in that time, schedule, and support of our kids. That was my journey. So here you are chugging along, making it all work, and then all of a sudden you hit a roadblock. Maybe an imaginary ceiling in your business or your capacity, or I call it my mojo. Like, what makes me tick? Like, how come I don't wake up in the morning with that same vigor and grit that I always had? What happened? You don't quite know what it is or what it could be. Well, I'm going to say it could be trauma that is impacting the business. Not just the trauma of the loss of our spouse and how it changed our life and switched it upside down on our head, and I gotta say, a little bit of trauma of soul parenting, right? We never planned on doing it on our own. But how we react to that trauma of the loss is very well impacted by what we learned when we were younger. That is what this trauma induced therapy for your business is all about. How to unpack it, how to make yourself tick, how to give you that vava in your room each and every day. That is why we invited Nicole Lewis Keeber to this podcast. Give it a quick listen. You can do it in the car on the way to get little Johnny from lacrosse practice. I want you to listen in at what she does and how it's an accidental little bit of vava in our room, a little bit of therapy for our business, our person, and our parenthood. Give a listen. Hi, everyone, and welcome to this edition of Widow Wisdom and Wealth. I'm more than happy to introduce our guest today, Nicole Lewis Keeber. She is a business therapist and mindset coach who works with entrepreneurs to create and nurture healthy relationships with their businesses. Nicole is a licensed clinical social worker with a master's in social work and a rich experience of working as a therapist. Certified in Brene Brown's The Daring Way and Dare to Lead methodologies, she has also been featured on numerous media outlets, including Fast Company and NPR, for her work in breaking the stigma of mental health and business ownership. She works in combining therapeutic process with business coaching to help entrepreneurs build emotionally, sustainably, and a financially stable business. Welcome so much, Nicole. I'm so happy that you joined us. We're recording this very early in the morning, so thanks for being here bright and shiny with us.
Thank you for having me.
So, Nicole, we always like to welcome our guests and a little bit of storytelling. So, tell us a little bit about your story, how you developed this passion in life, and what you do.
I think with many of us, our careers call to us early, and they have their own journey, and sometimes in very twisty and interesting ways. And I have always been the person that people would tell their story to, like immediately sit down and someone's life story. I don't know why I was gifted with that, but I was. And that led me to develop a career as a therapist. So I was a therapist for 18 years, clinical supervisor, like you name it, I've done it. I've worked with people most of my career. And about 18 years in, I went through a period of burnout because, a lot of systems around mental health are not supportive to the practitioner. And we want to give, give, give. And so I ended up leaving direct practice as a therapist and started my business working with small business owners, entrepreneurs, and leaders around money mindset. And that was an interesting experience for the first several years of my business. And what was interesting to me and kind of what led me to the journey where I'm at now is that a lot of people who were coming to work with me, they appreciated the fact I had been a therapist and they wanted to work on their relationship with money. And we saw pretty quickly that they were not having mindset challenges. Like they would say, Nicole, I want to work on my money mindset. And it would become very clear that it wasn't a mindset challenge. It was actually a trauma response from something that had happened, in these very formative, important years when we're younger. And it opened my mind to the idea that something in that foundational moment, these challenges that we could have could actually show up in places we're not expecting, like our money or in our business. And so for the past 10 years, I've been doing research at the intersection of childhood trauma and entrepreneurship and how that shows up. And it's been fascinating. And been kind of a thought leader, I think, at least in the past 10 years on that. I see more people talking about it now, but when I first started, no one really wanted to, it's kind of like you put your peanut butter in my chocolate. No, you put your chocolate in my peanut butter. No, 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 we don't want to do this. And I kept going, but they're the same. Who we are is how we lead. Like everything kind of goes together. We have to look at all the parts of us. So that's been my journey for the past 10 years, and it's been enlightening.
I love that. Thank you for doing all of that research. And I think for many of our listeners here, they're balancing that role of um, being a parent, right? Being a widower or widower, and also leading their career. So many of them have pivoted during this time period. And this is why I was so excited to have you on as a guest. And many of times, hey, it happened to me, right? Like I'm in my business and I switch my role and like instead of working W-2 job, I'm now an entrepreneur and I'm chugging along. And then year three, I hit a ceiling. And I was like, wait, what is this? Right? So you go to a business coach, and I was so lucky to have found a business coach that was grounded in spirituality and a little bit of what you do. And they were like, oh, no, it's not just the trauma of losing my husband, right? It's deep-seated stuff from back then. And God, I'm a statistician by trade, right? So I was like, no, I'm above everything that happened to me when I was younger. This has nothing to do with it. But really, it's learned lessons, right? So, how does one finally say, okay, I'm going to go work with Nicole, right? Because I myself didn't realize that I had this type of, mm, say, topics that I needed to
Mhm,
work through.
mhm.
I'm sure you have very, very good words to describe it, but how does one
Yeah.
lead themselves to you?
I think that, we start to notice patterns in our lives. And we're like, oh, I wonder why this is here again. And, to be fair, no one's looking for, childhood trauma in their business. Like, we don't really allow for those conversations. So it's very easy for those patterns and adaptations to show up in how we operate in our business. And, how it worked for me is that I had started my business and I was really dreading my Monday mornings. And I was curious about why, because I thought, well, I didn't start a business to have the Sunday scaries again. Like,
Yeah.
what's going on?
I love they call them the Sunday
Um,
scaries. We used to call
yeah,
them,
it's like, oh,
we
I
used to
hear it's
live
the
on a,
Saturday scaries now.
right? I remember sitting on the beach with my best friend in high school, and her dad was a high exec in New York. And it was Sunday, and the sun was going down. We're in Philadelphia, so we're in the New Jersey shore. And he would say, I have the Sunday blues. I just don't want to get back in the car. I don't want to leave. I don't want this moment to end. And like
Yeah.
that was for us as young women being like, ugh, is this adulthood? Like, we don't want this to happen. So thanks for calling them the
Yeah.
Sunday scaries. So,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's a really good indicator, particularly if you have started your own business or, many of us have left, other structures of employment to not have that experience, for whatever reason. And I recognized that I was dreading Monday morning and I was dreading my own business. And, I talk about it in my book, How to Love Your Business, kind of like what unfolded for me, but the short answer to that is that I had created a relationship with my business that felt very unsupportive, it felt very punitive, it felt very overbearing, and that's not what I wanted for myself. So, having this, this history as a therapist, it gave me tools and frameworks to use to actually change that. But if you're finding yourself dreading Monday morning, or maybe you're feeling isolated and alone again, in your business, or you feel like you can't rely on your employees again, like it's kind of like the again is where you could get curious about when it comes to how your business is operating and whether those experiences that you've had in your previous life in those very important formative and developmental years might be playing out. When we feel unsafe, unseen, unheard in some way as a child, we have to adapt in order to find security. And a lot of people adapt to being the boss or being really driven or being, an overproducer, an overfunctioner. And that's great because it's a wonderful skill set for an entrepreneur. and it's not sustainable across across time. So I would say if you're noticing something over and over again, there might be a moment in time that we need to retrieve for you.
Yeah, and I've found with so many of the career changers, I'll say that we work with or that we've interviewed here, like it's almost like they're running on adrenaline, they're running on grit, they want to
Mhm.
prove themselves they can get it done. And then they do, and they don't know how to regulate that nervous system to be like, okay, we don't have to run like this all the time. How would you address that? Or what advice do you have for listeners who might be like, ooh, that's me, right? Like we're there now.
Yeah.
Do we have to keep running at this rate?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's always important to look at, why am I running? How has this benefited me? And how would I like to change that? And also to recognize you can't make the change overnight. And this is a thing I see that a lot of business coaches will, when they're working with their client, they're having an emotional challenge. They try to put a business solution on it. They'll say, well, you need to leverage, or you need to do more. You need to, triple or, your prices, whatever that may be. And the thing is that if you have not built capacity in your nervous system for those big changes, your nervous system and your, inner critic or whomever is going to sabotage it because it doesn't feel safe. So if you're constantly running, I think we need to get curious about how has that benefited you? How do you want to change it? And what could that look like? What expanding nervous system capacity behaviors do we need to then put in place that support you? Because it's not about just pulling the rug out from underneath you. And also to honor the fact that has worked for you for a very long time for a really good reason. And so we don't want to abandon that either. So I think it requires, we talk a lot about self-leadership, my leadership trainings, and this is an example of that. If you want to lead yourself in a different direction, like you can't overfunction forever. What does that look like for you? And it's going to be different for each person. So it's getting really curious about that.
Yeah, I love it. And I will find also that some of my widow friends, right? This feels to them like spending money on themselves versus spend like to have a trauma-informed therapist in their business. They look at it as if it's spending money on themselves, not on the business, right? Or not on traditional therapy for maybe their kids that they need. And so when they're making the decision to work with a trauma-informed specialist like yourself and a business coach, it seems like, oh no, I can't let that happen. Tell us a little bit about why sometimes that decision is made and maybe encourage our listeners to, yeah, lean in. Like this can help the family, this can help you, this can help your career, this can help the
Mhm.
people you impact through your business.
Well, it's happening to you whether you are in control of it or not. It's not a choice of do I do this or not? Am I experiencing this or not? You're experiencing it. And what we don't address comes out sideways. Like it just does. It does in our relationships, it does in our business. I always say that, starting a business is a high dive into personal development, whether you like it or not, it's going to happen. And it's going to bring up a lot of things. So why not have someone like me who's not only, a licensed therapist, but also, a leadership coach and, who has these other credentials as well to help guide you through something that's going to happen to everyone at some point and in some way. And, the benefit is that many people who work with me will allow themselves to do it because it's for their business. Like they haven't done it for themselves, but they were able to muster the courage to look underneath the hood a little bit because they knew it would benefit their business. And it's not always that people are struggling, financially in their business. It means that
Sure.
they've hit a ceiling, of do I want to keep doing this? Maybe I want to shift or pivot. Maybe there's a next level of my business I want to go to. And I recognize that if I have to hustle and overproduce, and if that's what, taking it to the next level looks like and means, I don't know if I can do that. I don't know if that's sustainable. So, coming to work with someone like me helps you build capacity. It affects all the areas of your business. What you're experiencing is working its way out in your money. It's working its way out in your employees, the clients that you're working with, your calendar, your boundaries. There's just no part of your business that these things don't seep into. And it puts you in a power position and it's a huge skill set to be able to look at this and see where is this showing up for me and how can I change it? And not to mention the fact that I'm like my business right off because I'm a coach. So,
Thank you for
I mean,
going there. That's what we were looking for. So,
you know
like,
what I mean? Like it's not only just the, I think emotionally sustainable, it's also, you get a business right off to work with someone like me.
And it's true, like through my business, I was able to find, again, a business coach that had a spiritual feeling to her. And that helped drive me into a whole different realm of how I lead and what's my why. And what do I want
Mhm.
for my kids? How do I want them to see me in business? And how do I want to impact the clients that I work with? And you're
Yeah.
right, by having it through the business, I would spend anything to help my kids in therapy. I would spend anything to help them with their SAT score, but I was just gritting through it, right? So here is that beautiful way. Are we listening, all our widows and widowers who are out there with their career? It doesn't have to just be entrepreneurship. If you're trying to get the next level in your career or even figure out how to have more satisfaction when maybe we're not working as much because now we're raising those kids on the side, right? So in the small limit of the 40 hours that we have, because that's just drop in the hat of this lifetime. How do we make the most impact to lean in and say, hey, maybe if I can clear some stuff out of the way, we can get this all to the next level. And so I love that you said that. And if we do it through our business, you'll be surprised of how it impacts the rest of your life. Agreed?
Yeah. And I can confidently say in 10 years of doing this work, I've never not seen it work.
Yeah.
And I will own that win, for my clients and being supportive to them in this journey because we need someone who understands our unique perspective, our unique experience, how our business runs, how these things may be playing out. And yeah, like in 10 years, like I've never been asked for a refund and my business has run on personal referral. So
Love
it
that.
works. It
Love
works.
that. So
Yeah.
tell listeners, who is your ideal client? So if they're like, hey, that's me, I'm in, tell me.
Yeah, so I'm called a business therapist for a reason. And part of that is that I work with a lot of people who are the founder of their business. And that can have different titles. They can have CEO, founder, it doesn't really matter. But they are the one who founded the business. They are the one who wanted to do the thing. They're the one that put the hard work into it. And those are the people that I love working with because they have the emotional attachment and connection to their business and what happens next, right? And that's where all those things can play out. So those are the people I love working with because we're doing some deep work and it has the most impact quickest. I can work with just about anyone because of my background. I work with CEOs, I work with leaders. We do a lot of leadership training in the leadership side of my business. But my heart are the people who have started a business, entered into a startup, something that they had an emotional desire and drive to start that thing. And those are the people I love to work with because, yeah, it's just a really rewarding experience to see what is possible when you can create an emotional sustainability plan underneath the marketing, the business strategy plans too. It's really neat.
Oh, I love it because truly it is for many entrepreneurs, it is your impact on the business as the founder, as
Hmm.
the owner, as the visionary for the business that carries the message. We always talk about the core values of your business, right? And
Yeah,
that carries through, right? So keeping yourself mm, in line, right? And keeping
yeah.
yourself aware of the you, right? We're ever changing. And I know you can work
You
one
are the
on
nervous system of your business. When you start the business, you create the nervous system of growth. That's
yeah.
what you do.
Yep. And what do you want for your employees, right? And what do you want for your clients, right? So when you can go ahead and set that out there with help, right? And clarity, that's it's limitless. I love it. So I know
It
you
is.
work one-on-one with clients and look, there's so many ways what you have love your business school, love your money, love your leadership, and then you also work in signature programs. And by the way, for anyone who has their own business, trademark your signature programs. I love seeing your trademarks. Tell us a little bit about how someone would work with you one on one versus like your do no harm for trauma conscious business
Mhm.
program. Talk us through that.
Yeah, so anyone can work with me one-on-one. I do therapeutic coaching and help with people to learn how to have a trauma conscious business. That's kind of my jam and what I love to do. And we use some of those signature programs to do that. Like I have a do no harm program that helps people learn how to do no harm to themselves with their business, and in turn to do no harm to the other people who are connected to their business, whether it's employees, through their marketing, their sales processes. We can recreate a lot of really harmful behaviors in ways that we don't even realize. And so I utilize either those signature programs with those one-on-one people because of the learning pieces, or if I want to at some point just run the program again as a group, I can do that because I have this program here that can be used in so many different ways. And so while I do love doing one-on-one work, it's kind of fun to have these programs that are vetted and are working for me to pull out when I want to just enjoy the group aspect of putting people together to learn something really unique and fun that changes their business. Even, I geek out on trauma. Like it can be fun to do this. I promise.
I'm glad that you say that. Like, well done. So. And it's so funny, like, so I'm going to go on a personal level, right? So I treat myself as if I have two businesses, right? I have Sefton Financial, which is like my financial planning for families in transition, and that is what I recreated after the loss of my husband and just went running with it full force. And wow, one of the best things. I can't even imagine my life without it. But then I have the business of my children. We're a blended family. We have six kids, right? And it's my leadership and it's them. Sometimes I look at them as like my little employees. And how am I representing myself as a business owner? How am I representing myself as a mom, but all in leadership? So, any last wisdom for our listeners who are out there balancing it both that, yeah, like they are kind of two businesses there.
They are. And I think you just mentioned something very important, and that is what are your values? What are the guideposts for who you are and how you operate in life? And whether it is work, home, family, business, entrepreneurship, if you know what those are and you know what they look like in practice, not just professed, but practice, those are the guideposts that are going to help you no matter what it is, whether it's in, abundant times or challenge, they're going to lead the way. My values are consent, freedom, and abundance. And they're just something I can pull up anytime I need to make a decision or I'm not sure about something. So I would say do some values work, some clarifying what your values are and what they look like in practice.
Yeah,
It's one
I
of the
love that you
most
say that.
important things.
I remember doing a mission statement for my business, and I was like, oh, why aren't I doing one of these for my kids? Right. And because
Hmm.
we're a blended family, right? Like everyone was raised just a little bit different for those early formative years up till 8, right? And that's when we all kind of came together for many of those kids. So, like, how are we not sitting down together and doing like a family mission statement? And listeners, let me tell you, they were not on board. They were like, oh my God, right? So I kind of had to back it
Yeah.
out and do it a little bit of individual work with all of them, right? And then be like, hey, like, this is what we represent as the Kendrickian family here in Jenkintown. And I love it. It was a good
Hmm.
thing. Good thing.
Intentions matter.
I love it. Thank you for the work you do. Thank you for taking
Thank you.
just a little bit of time early in the morning to share
Mhm.
some wisdom with our listeners. What's the best way that people can connect with you? And we will have everything in the show
Mhm.
notes too. But if someone's driving
Yeah.
right now, they're going to listen. How's the best way to find you, Nicole?
Yeah. So the easiest way is, hey, LinkedIn, Nicole Lewis Keeper. We're all hanging out there. So you can always find me there. My website is nicole.lewis-keeber.com. You can find me there. If you're a TikTok person, I'm the business therapist on TikTok, so that's always a fun place to hang out. And if you're curious about my work and it's not quite coming clear yet, I wrote a book called How to Love Your Business that is an explanation of the journey that I went on, and it's got client stories about, how building a relationship with your business has helped them, exercises at the end of every chapter. So, and it's on Amazon. You can grab it there off my website. So I really feel like that's a great place for people to start.
Yeah, that's a great introduction to you, the work you
Mhm.
do, and your why, and then connect further later. Well done. Thank you so much, Nicole. I appreciate you being here. You have a wonderful day, my love.
Thank you so much.